A deep silence filled the endless void of space, broken only by the faint hum of a dying machine. The signal began as a whisper, a single pulse moving across the stars. It was never meant to be heard by human ears, never meant to cross the impossible distances. Yet somehow, against all odds, it reached them. In a quiet observatory on Earth, far from the noise of cities, an old radio dish moved slowly under the night sky. The operator on duty was not expecting anything unusual. Most nights were the same: strange static, the occasional signal bounce, sometimes even interference from satellites. But this night was different. The pulse arrived, weak and broken, like the heartbeat of something that refused to die. He leaned forward, headphones pressed tightly to his ears. The signal carried rhythm. It was not natural. It repeated again and again, with small variations that hinted at intent. His fingers trembled as he recorded it. He had listened to years of noise, but this was not noise. This was a voice. Far away, the source of the call struggled. A ship, broken and lost, drifted between the stars. Its crew was silent now, long gone, but its machines still obeyed the last command: send a call for help. No answer had ever come. Entire civilizations might have passed while the signal kept traveling, unseen and unheard. But tonight, Earth had caught it. The operator reported it to his supervisor. At first, they dismissed it. Probably a glitch, another false alarm. But when the recording was studied, patterns were found, mathematical structures too precise to be random. A message was hidden inside the noise. Humanity had been searching the skies for decades, hoping to hear something. Now, something had spoken back. Excitement spread quickly. Scientists from every nation wanted access to the signal. Decoders worked day and night. The message was damaged, fragmented, but parts of it revealed shapes, maps, warnings, and above all, desperation. The words, once pieced together, were haunting. Help us. Please. We are not many. We are not safe. Nobody knew where it came from. The coordinates pointed to a region far beyond human reach, a lonely sector of the galaxy with no known worlds. To most, it was impossible. How could humanity help when the source was light years away? But impossibility had never stopped them before. In the darkness of the drifting ship, systems still flickered. Lights dimmed, sparks fell across broken panels, but the signal continued. Something inside the wreckage waited, clinging to hope that someone, somewhere, might answer. Its creators had never known Earth. They had never even imagined humans. Yet the plea had crossed into human hands, and once heard, it could not be ignored. Nations argued. Some feared it was a trap, a lure sent to draw humanity into danger. Others saw it as destiny, proof they were not alone, proof that kindness mattered even across the void. The debate reached every screen, every radio, every conversation on the planet. For the first time, humanity felt united by a single question: should we answer? The signal grew weaker. Days passed, and the old machine on the distant wreck fought to stay alive. Its strength was fading. If no one answered soon, it would vanish forever, lost in silence. The scientists grew restless. They pressed their governments to decide. This was not only discovery, it was a race against time. Finally, a decision was made. The first reply was prepared. It was simple, only a confirmation, a heartbeat sent back across the endless dark. We hear you. The signal left Earth with speed of light, chasing across stars, knowing it might take years to reach. But the act itself changed everything. Humanity had answered a call not meant for them, a call that might change their future forever. And yet, not all were hopeful. In quiet corners, in secret rooms, some whispered fears. If the voice asking for help was real, then so too was whatever danger it fled. What if, by answering, they had invited that danger closer to Earth? The world waited, breath held. The old dish turned again under the night sky, listening for a reply. Somewhere in the vast emptiness, a broken ship drifted, waiting for an answer it was never meant to receive. The question was no longer whether humanity had heard the call. The question was what would happen now that they had chosen to listen. The reply from Earth had left the planet like a spark in darkness. It would take years to arrive at its destination, but the moment humanity pressed send, the world itself had changed. For some, it was a moment of pride, proof that mankind was ready to step into the galaxy. For others, it was a shadow of fear. What had they awakened? Governments began secret meetings. Military leaders demanded to be prepared. If there was a civilization out there, even if dying, what if something stronger was chasing it? The message Earth had received was not a greeting, not a promise of peace, but a cry for help. Something hunted them, something powerful enough to reduce their ships to wreckage. Yet, ordinary people were fascinated. News networks repeated the decoded words again and again. Families sat in front of glowing screens late into the night, listening to the haunting recording. Help us. Please. We are not many. We are not safe. Children asked questions their parents could not answer. Some prayed. Some dreamed of friendship with the stars. Some imagined only war. Scientists worked day and night to study the fragments of data hidden in the signal. It carried more than words. It carried coordinates, energy signatures, and faint traces of alien technology. The ship that had sent the message was massive, far larger than any human craft, yet it was broken, bleeding power into space. The fact it still lived after so long spoke of technology far beyond Earth's reach. Dr. Mara, one of the lead scientists, could not sleep. She stared at the signal patterns until her eyes burned. She noticed something others had missed, a secondary layer of code. Beneath the desperate plea, another set of instructions pulsed quietly, almost hidden. When she decrypted it, her blood ran cold. The hidden message was not a call for help. It was a warning. Do not come. They will hear you too. She hesitated before revealing it. The governments already feared danger, and this would only add fuel. But she knew it could not be kept secret for long. Humanity had not only answered, they had answered something they did not understand. Meanwhile, engineers and dreamers began sketching impossible designs. If the source of the call was too far, then Earth must build new ships. Faster, stronger, capable of reaching across the stars. For the first time, nations that once fought against each other now shared blueprints. Rival scientists exchanged theories. Mankind had always dreamed of the stars, but now the stars had spoken back. Still, the military whispered. What if the broken ship was bait? What if the warning was true? Weapons were tested in silence. New projects began in underground labs. Humanity was preparing for friendship, and for war. The old dish that had caught the signal continued to listen, scanning the heavens. One night, something unexpected happened. A new pulse appeared. Different from the first. Sharper. Stronger. It did not repeat words of desperation. It carried rhythm like a drumbeat. Technicians froze when they saw it. The code was faster, more aggressive, like claws scratching against glass. When translated, the message was chilling. We hear you too. Fear spread through the control room. Who had sent it? Was it the same dying ship? Or was it the hunter that had destroyed them? Nobody knew. The signal carried no coordinates, no maps, only those 4 words, echoing again and again. The world changed overnight. The first message had united humanity in hope. The second divided them in fear. Some demanded silence, that Earth stop sending replies before it was too late. Others argued it was already too late. The moment Earth had spoken, the galaxy had noticed. Dr. Mara listened to both signals, the desperate plea and the sinister reply. She felt torn between wonder and dread. Somewhere, something weak and broken was begging for help. Somewhere else, something powerful and dangerous had heard the same call. And humanity was caught between them, like a small candle between 2 storms. In the halls of power, choices were made. They could not undo their reply. They could not hide again in silence. So they would prepare. New satellites were launched, new alliances formed, and whispers of a first contact fleet spread across secret documents. If the stars were watching, then Earth would not face them as prey. But in the quiet hours of night, when the observatories turned their dishes to the dark, one question burned in every mind. Who would reach Earth first, the broken ones crying for help, or the hunters that had destroyed them? The signals still pulsed in the air, racing across the void, crossing paths unseen. Two voices had spoken into the night. And now, humanity had answered both. The world was not the same anymore. The first message had brought hope. The second had brought fear. Now, every nation on Earth looked to the stars not as a dream, but as a battlefield waiting to unfold. Dr. Mara sat in her office, the recordings playing on repeat. Help us, please. We are not many. We are not safe. Then the darker one, sharper like knives. We hear you too. She closed her eyes, listening carefully, over and over. The tones, the rhythms, the gaps, they were different. The voices were not the same. Two senders. Two truths. Somewhere in the galaxy, a dying ship still begged. And somewhere else, the hunters were already watching. Governments argued endlessly. Some wanted to send another reply, to show strength. Others wanted silence, believing that any further signal would only attract more attention. But silence was already too late. Humanity had spoken. In hidden labs, ships were being designed, their engines experimental, their weapons untested. The project had no official name, but among the workers it was whispered as the Ark Fleet. Not to conquer, but to defend. Not to reach the stars in glory, but to be ready for the darkness that might come from them. Meanwhile, strange things began to happen with the signal. Every night, the observatories caught faint new echoes. Bursts of static that sometimes shaped into words. Not always clear. Not always the same. One night, the recording spoke in broken phrases. Hurry. Not long, they come. Another night, it was different. Found you. The scientists fought over interpretations. Were these fragments from the broken ship, struggling to warn them? Or were they from the hunters, mocking their prey? No one knew. The sky had become a place of secrets, each star hiding questions humanity was not ready to answer. Dr. Mara grew restless. She wanted more than theories and arguments. She wanted proof. She pushed for the creation of a mission, an unmanned probe, built quickly, designed to follow the coordinates hidden in the first signal. A small machine, not a warship, just an eye in the dark. Many opposed her. Sending anything was risky. But finally, desperation won. The probe was launched in silence, hidden from the public. It carried no weapons, only cameras, sensors, and a recorder. Its journey would take years, but every second of its flight was watched. Humanity held its breath. While the probe traveled, life on Earth changed. Some people lived in fear, stocking supplies, building shelters, imagining invasion. Others treated the signals as miracles, believing the universe was calling them to something greater. A new religion even rose, worshipping the voice of the lost. Humanity had always divided over the unknown, and the stars were no different. One night, Dr. Mara received an encrypted file from an unknown source. Inside was a recording, not from the official channels, but from another observatory halfway across the world. It contained a message clearer than any before. The voice, if it could be called a voice, was trembling but alive. You are not the enemy. We are hunted. They will come for you too. Hide or fight. Choose. Her hands shook as she played it again. This was no longer just noise. It was a conversation. And the choice was real. But the message came too late. For days afterward, the old dishes detected stronger signals, ones that did not beg, but searched. Wide bursts of energy swept across the skies, like someone casting nets into an ocean. The hunters were scanning, looking, listening. The leaders of Earth knew then, they had been found. Silence would no longer protect them. The Ark Fleet rushed forward. Factories worked without rest. Prototypes were tested at night, explosions lighting up the desert skies. Scientists whispered about faster-than-light drives, dangerous and unstable, but necessary. Humanity could no longer wait for slow journeys. If the hunters were coming, they must meet them head-on. Dr. Mara stood at the edge of the hangar where the first human-built starship gleamed under bright lights. It was rough, not beautiful, but powerful. A symbol of desperation and unity. She felt pride but also fear. They were building weapons against shadows, against an enemy they had never seen. Above, the stars glittered as they always had. Silent. Cold. Waiting. Somewhere out there, a broken ship drifted, still calling for help. Somewhere else, a predator listened, patient and cruel. And Earth, small and fragile, had placed itself between them. The night was no longer quiet. It was counting down. The probe cut through the darkness, a small machine moving faster than any human craft before it. It carried no crew, no weapons, only human eyes made of steel and glass. Its destination was the set of coordinates hidden inside the first message. The world waited, watching every signal it sent back. 4 months, it traveled, slipping past planets, crossing the silent sea of stars. Its engines glowed faintly, a spark against infinity. People followed its journey on screens, as if the tiny probe carried their hopes with it. News anchors called it the Pathfinder. Children drew pictures of it in classrooms. To many, it was not just a machine, it was the first step into the unknown. Back on Earth, Dr. Mara worked without rest. She spent nights listening to faint transmissions, days studying the probe's live feed. The further it went, the stranger the signals became. Static grew louder, sometimes forming ghostly patterns, almost like whispers. At first, she thought it was noise. But soon, she realized it was something else. The probe was moving closer to the source. One evening, the feed brought back its first sight. A shadow in the distance. At first it looked like a starless patch, darker than the space around it. As the probe drifted nearer, lights flickered, dim, fading, like candles in the wind. Then the shape appeared. A ship. Enormous. Larger than any human city. Broken, scarred, yet still alive. Gasps filled the control room. Humanity was staring at an alien vessel for the first time. Its hull was torn in places, pieces of metal floating like shattered bones. But parts of it still glowed, pulsing weakly with energy. It was a graveyard and a heartbeat combined. The probe scanned its surface. Strange symbols ran along the wreck, glowing faintly like scars written in light. Some sections were burned beyond recognition. Others carried long, sharp marks, wounds left by weapons far more powerful than anything humanity had ever seen. Then the feed showed something else. Movement. Inside the wreck, hidden behind broken walls, faint signals pulsed. Life signs. Weak, but real. Something was alive on that ship. The room fell silent. The crew watching the feed could hardly breathe. For decades humanity had wondered if it was alone. Now the answer was right there, drifting and broken, waiting for rescue. Dr. Mara leaned closer to the screen. The probe's sensors detected pods scattered across the ship. Most were dark, dead. But a few still glowed faintly, keeping something inside alive. The survivors of the unknown species. And then the probe sent back sound. Not words, not clear speech, but low, broken noises, like cries carried through water. The same pattern repeated, the same desperate plea from the first message. Help us. Please. We are not many. We are not safe. Tears filled Mara's eyes. They were real. The voices were not just signals, they were living beings, still calling across the dark. But then something changed. The probe sensors detected another signal. Stronger. Sharper. It did not come from the broken ship. It came from far away, closing in. The hunters. The signal was powerful, too powerful to be ignored. It cut across the stars like a blade, washing over the wreck, washing over the probe. For a second, the live feed blurred, as if something was trying to blind it. Then, clear and cold, words formed. Leave them. Leave or die. The probe trembled under interference. Systems flickered. For a moment, it seemed like it would be destroyed. But before the feed cut out, it captured one last image. On the edge of the wreck, far in the distance, a shadow moved. A shape so vast it dwarfed even the broken alien ship. Its outline was sharp, angular, built for war. Lights glowed like red eyes across its hull. The hunters had arrived. The feed went dark. The probe was gone. On Earth, silence filled the control rooms. Scientists stared at blank screens. Military leaders clenched their fists. Ordinary people who had been watching the probe's journey through broadcasts saw only static now. The first machine humanity had sent across the stars had been silenced. But the images it sent before death remained. Proof of life. Proof of death. Proof of enemies. Dr. Mara whispered into the silence, her voice shaking. We're not alone. And now, they know where we are. The countdown had begun. The silence after the probe's destruction was heavier than any explosion. Screens across the world showed only static, but the last images had already burned themselves into memory. A broken alien ship. Faint survivors. And, in the distance, a shadow built for war. Humanity had seen enough to know the truth. The galaxy was not empty. It was dangerous. Governments moved quickly. Factories that once made planes and ships were now turned to starship production. Weapons research tripled in speed. The Ark Fleet project was no longer secret, it became humanity's priority. Every nation poured resources into it. Even rivals who had hated each other for centuries now stood side by side, united by fear. But while the soldiers prepared for battle, the scientists searched for voices. The probe had gone silent, but fragments of data survived. Among them was a faint transmission captured in its final seconds, so weak it was almost unreadable. Dr. Mara and her team worked night after night, adjusting filters, cleaning noise, until at last, the voice became clear. We live, not many, hurry. The survivors were still alive. Dr. Mara could not keep it secret. She stood before the Global Council, her voice firm but shaking with emotion. We cannot ignore them. They called for us. They are alive. If we only prepare for war and do nothing for them, then we are no better than the hunters chasing them. Some agreed. Others argued. Every resource spent on saving the aliens meant fewer ships ready to defend Earth. The room filled with shouting voices. Yet through the chaos, one truth held: humanity had already answered once. To abandon the survivors now would mean betraying their own promise. Finally, a plan was made. The Ark fleet would continue its preparations, but alongside it, a smaller mission would launch. Not a fleet of war, but a single vessel built for rescue. A ship fast enough to reach the wreck before the hunters destroyed it completely. It would carry translators, medics, supplies. Its task was simple: bring the survivors home. The people cheered when the mission was announced. They called it Project Haven. Some feared it was suicide, others believed it was destiny. But one thing was certain: humanity could not hide anymore. They would step into the galaxy, not as conquerors, not as prey, but as rescuers. As work began, strange signals returned. The hunters were still searching, their transmissions sweeping the stars like knives. But between the cuts of static, softer voices broke through. The survivors were sending again. Their words were stronger now, almost desperate. We see you. Please. We wait. They come. Dr. Mara played the message in her lab. The voice was not human, but its emotion was clear. Fear. Hope. Exhaustion. She whispered to the empty room, as if they could hear her across the void. We're coming. Hold on. Meanwhile, the military prepared Earth for the worst. Cities built shelters. Satellites were armed. The Ark fleet tested engines that bent the rules of physics, dangerous but necessary. Every failed test was followed by another attempt, because there was no other choice. The hunters would not wait. Then, weeks later, something unexpected happened. For the first time, the survivors spoke not in fragments, not in broken words, but in something closer to human speech. The translation was rough, but clear enough to understand. Who are you? Why help? The message spread across the planet in seconds. News anchors repeated it. Children asked their parents how to answer. It was the question that mattered most. Humanity had stepped into the galaxy, not because it was strong, but because it had chosen kindness. Now the very ones they wished to save were asking why. The council debated, but Dr. Mara insisted on a reply. And so, Earth sent its second message into the stars. Simple words, clear and true. Because you asked. Because we could not stay silent. For a moment, the world was united again. They had chosen compassion, even in the face of fear. But the celebration did not last. Hours after the reply was sent, the hunter's signal returned, stronger than ever. This time, it was not a threat. It was a promise. We are coming. The words echoed across every observatory. On Earth, the skies looked the same, calm, full of stars. But now, everyone knew the truth. Somewhere out there, the hunters were moving. Their ships were not myths. Their weapons were not whispers. They were real. And they were on their way. Project Haven continued to build its rescue ship. The Ark fleet prepared for war. And in the quiet between those two great tasks, humanity held its breath, waiting for the moment when the stars would no longer be silent. The ship built for Project Haven stood in silence, gleaming under floodlights. It was smaller than the warships of the Ark fleet, but faster. Its engines burned with experimental power, dangerous yet necessary. It was not made for battle. It was made for hope. Crowds gathered as the day of launch arrived. Screens lit up across every city, showing the vessel resting on its platform. Children waved flags. Families whispered prayers. For centuries, humans had dreamed of crossing the stars, but now, the dream carried weight. Somewhere, survivors waited for rescue. Somewhere else, hunters were already moving. Dr. Mara walked across the launch bay, her hand brushing the cold hull. She had not expected to be chosen for the mission. She was a scientist, not a soldier. But the council had insisted. She was the one who had first decoded the signal, the one the survivors already trusted, even if they did not yet know her face. If anyone could make contact, it was her. Beside her stood Commander Elias, leader of the crew. He was stern, calm, a man who carried the weight of Earth's defense on his shoulders. His words were few, but his presence steady. The rest of the team were a mixture of engineers, medics, and translators. None of them knew if they would return. The engines roared. Fire lit up the night as the ship rose into the sky, breaking through clouds, leaving Earth behind. Cheers followed them, fading as the planet shrank into the distance. Humanity had sent its first true ambassadors into the galaxy. Not diplomats, not conquerors, but rescuers. The journey was tense. The further they traveled, the stronger the signals grew. The survivors' voices were clearer now, guiding them. Here, hurry. But beneath those calls, another presence lurked. The hunters' transmissions filled the void like thunder, closer each day. After long weeks, the wreck appeared before them. Even prepared, the crew fell silent at the sight. The alien ship was massive, a giant corpse drifting through endless night. Its broken hull stretched for miles, its wounds glowing faintly with dying energy. Pieces of metal drifted like ghosts around it. Cautiously, Commander Elias guided their ship closer. The sensors confirmed what the probe had found, faint life signs scattered across the wreck. Pods still active. The survivors were real. They docked near a shattered hangar. The airlock hissed as it connected. For a moment, no one moved. The silence of the alien ship pressed against them, heavy and ancient. Dr. Mara took the first step inside. The corridors were dark, lit only by flickering lights. Strange symbols ran along the walls, glowing faintly. The air was thin, heavy with the scent of metal and smoke. Every sound echoed, footsteps, breathing, the distant groan of broken machinery. Then, a door opened. Inside were the pods. Transparent shells lined the walls, many dark, empty, lifeless. But a few still glowed. Within them lay figures, thin, fragile, unlike anything human, yet unmistakably alive. Their skin shimmered faintly, their faces long and narrow, their limbs delicate. Wires connected them to the pods, feeding them faint energy. One of the pods flickered, and the being inside opened its eyes. Large, luminous, filled with exhaustion and fear. It looked at Dr. Mara. For a long moment, neither moved. Then, weakly, the alien lifted a trembling hand against the glass. Dr. Mara pressed her hand to the surface. The translator device hummed, struggling to capture meaning. Static filled the room before words formed, broken but clear enough. You came. Her throat tightened. Yes, she whispered. We came. The crew worked quickly, transferring power from their ship into the pods. Lights brightened. The survivors stirred, their voices weak but hopeful. Words spilled through the translator. We thought. No one. Then you. But the moment of hope did not last. The ship's sensors screamed with alerts. Commander Elias's voice came sharp over comms. Contact. Multiple signatures. They found us. Dr. Mara froze. The hunters. Through the shattered hull of the wreck, distant lights burned. Shapes emerged from the dark, sharp, angular ships, their hulls glowing with crimson lines. Predators circling prey. The hunters had arrived. The alien survivors trembled inside their pods, their eyes wide with terror. One of them whispered through the translator, voice breaking, "Run. You cannot fight them." Commander Elias turned to Dr. Mara, his face hard but steady. We don't have a choice. We either run now, or none of us leave alive. The engines of Project Haven roared to life, shaking the broken corridors. The rescue was not over. It had only begun. And as the hunters closed in, humanity was about to face its first true test among the stars. The hunters came fast. Their ships cut through the dark like blades, crimson lines glowing across their hulls. They were built for war, sleek, sharp, merciless. Compared to them, Project Haven looked small, fragile, a spark before a storm. Commander Elias gave the order. All hands aboard. Now. The crew rushed through the broken corridors, carrying portable power cells, pulling the survivors' pods into the ship's cargo bay. The aliens were weak, trembling, but alive. Their glowing eyes followed every movement, fear and wonder mixed together. They had sent a call into the void, never expecting an answer. And yet, here humanity was, struggling, desperate, but unwilling to leave them behind. The first hunter ship fired. A beam of red light tore through the wreck, slicing metal into molten fragments. The alien survivors cried out in fear. The walls shook. Project Haven groaned against the blast. Shields failing, shouted one of the engineers. Elias clenched his jaw. Mara, get them secure. We're leaving. Dr. Mara held onto one of the pods, whispering softly. Hold on. We'll get you out. The engines roared as the ship tore free from the wreck, dragging the pods inside. For a heartbeat, there was silence, only stars and the glow of ruined metal behind them. Then, the hunters gave chase. They were faster, stronger, older. Humanity had no right to outrun them. Lasers cut across the void, missing by meters. Explosions shook the small rescue ship. The crew worked frantically, patching systems, rerouting power. The hunters closed in, confident, like wolves chasing prey. Dr. Mara gripped the console, her voice trembling. We can't make it. They'll catch us. Elias's eyes burned with determination. Then we'll show them something new. He activated the experimental drive, the untested engine built in desperation back on Earth. Scientists had warned it was unstable. Too much risk. Too much unknown. But risk was all they had left. The ship screamed as the drive powered up. The stars outside stretched, twisted. For a moment, the universe itself seemed to bend. The hunters closed in, their beams cutting closer, until suddenly, the human ship vanished in a flash of white light. Silence. When the light faded, Project Haven reappeared far away, beyond the hunters' reach. Systems flickered, smoke filled the air, alarms screamed, but they were alive. Against all odds, they had escaped. The survivors stirred in their pods. One of them, weak but awake, looked at Dr. Mara through luminous eyes. The translator struggled, then spoke in a trembling voice. "No one ever escaped them. How did you?" Dr. Mara swallowed hard, glancing at the exhausted crew. "Because we had to. Because when someone calls for help, humans don't stop. Not even when the whole universe tells us it's impossible." The alien blinked slowly, as if trying to understand. Then, with faint strength, it whispered, "Humans. Different." Back on Earth, alarms rang as Project Haven re-entered orbit. Crowds gathered as the battered ship descended, carrying not only its crew but the first alien survivors ever to set foot on the planet. Humanity had gone to the stars not as conquerors, not as explorers, but as rescuers. The hunters would not forget them. Already their signal still echoed across the void, "We are coming." But humanity was no longer afraid. They had looked into the dark and chosen hope. They had faced predators and survived. They had taken the first step into the galaxy, and that step had carried others with it. In the council chamber, as the world celebrated and prepared, Dr. Mara spoke the words that would be remembered for generations. "They called for help, and we answered. That is who we are. That is what humanity will be." The stars no longer looked distant. They looked like the next battlefield, the next home, the next promise. And somewhere, far beyond human sight, the hunters turned their gaze toward Earth, no longer seeing it as a silent world, but as something new. Something dangerous. For in all their wars, in all their hunts, they had never faced a species like this. A species that heard a call not meant for them, and chose to answer anyway.